All right, we're working on the tractor again. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the hood off. The alternator's not here yet, but while we're waiting on the alternator, I'm gonna pull the grill off to try to fix some of the looseness, or at least take a look at it and see what it looks like in there. But got my Milwaukee. I'm gonna pull the 4 bolts out that hold the front on, take the muffler off, pull the hood off. So if the alternator does get here, we can look into that, see if it's going to be something we can do here or have to go into town where there's a welder. But yeah, so we'll get started by taking this off. All right, well, you can see someone's got a GM 1-wire alternator on here. It's not currently working, but I'm going to go ahead and replace and go to a different size alternator so that the hood doesn't hit it and the hood will shut. There's the front end with no tin on it. I'm going to pull these 4 bolts out and take a look down inside the gearbox and see what it looks like. All right, that's what it looks like. Disgusting. So when I move the wheels down with my knee, you can see the play in those teeth there, but the whole shaft is kind of moving also, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to do anything about that if there's a bearing on this shaft that is worn out, that's letting the whole shaft move back and forth. But that might be because I got it jacked up and it's not sitting in the position that it would normally sit in. So I'm going to clean some of this old grease off of here and see what it looks like when it's cleaned up a little bit. Okay, I didn't film it because my hands got really greasy, but I got the gear out. All you got to do is take the nut off and then push down on the shaft. I used a hammer because it's on a tapered seat to pop the gear loose. The nut wasn't happy about coming off, so I might have to find another one of those. But if you look here, hard to tell before I clean this up, but the gears are super thin, or the teeth are super thin on this side, which gives it a lot more play. So hopefully I can clean this up, and then I'm just going to turn it around so that the better gears, I'm assuming there's better gears under all this grease, will go back in on the worm gear, and then that should tighten up the steering quite a bit. Got the gear cleaned up, kind of, sort of, best I can with some old gas and a bucket. But if you look at it on this side here, I don't know if you can see the wear on these teeth, but if you flip it over to this side, there's no wear on the teeth. So we're going to flip this gear 180 degrees in the hole, so it'll sit in there like that. And then that should take out some of the slop, probably not all of it, but we'll make it better than it was. I'm probably going to get in here and clean some of this old crusty grease out. I have to run to town, get some new grease, and hopefully that nut will go back on. If not, I'll have to find one of those. So yeah. All right, got this cleaned out. Pretty good, probably good enough for what it is. Got the gear cleaned up some more. I had to fight with this here. The threads got messed up as it was coming off, so I went to town, try to find a new nut for it because I thought the nut was worse, but actually it was the shaft. So I used this new nut to try to kind of cut the threads back in, and I got it to where it will go back on. So I'm going to put a little grease down in the bottom of that, I think, and then set the gear on it, and then put some more grease on the top of that. Okay, got the nut back on, got some grease in there. Also put some gear oil, because I think that's what they're supposed to have. Could be wrong, probably am. But anyways, I put grease in there so that if the seals are all bad, which they probably are, and it runs out, I'll still have some grease in there to lubricate it. So I got this cleaned up. Since there's grease in there, or gear oil now instead of grease, I'm just going to put a little dab of silicone on that before I put the old cover back on. That way it shouldn't at least slosh out from the top. But yeah, we're almost ready to see if it made any difference at all. Got my thin bead on there. Got this flap disc off so it's somewhat clean. Let's see if we can put this on here. Surprisingly, didn't knock any of these bolts off while we was messing with the steering stuff. Got this put back together. I'm going to go ahead and put the grill back on. It's kind of bent up, so it might be a hassle, but we'll see if we can get that on there, put the hood on it, and then take it and see if it runs or drives any better. All right, got that on there. Alternator didn't show up, so I'm not going to worry about it for now. Based on the pictures, I'm not sure that my bracketry will work, so I'm probably going to have to make something, and I don't have a welder here. So hopefully with the improved steering, if it is improved, I can just drive this thing over to the other shop and we can get the brackets made up and the new alternator put on and go ahead and wire it in, so we'll have a charging system. Then I can run these super bright headlights. Oop. Well, maybe not. Alright, let's see if it's any better. time. The steering's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but I guess for an 80-year-old tractor, it's not too bad. But that's probably gonna do it for today. The next time we'll turn the camera on when we get to the shop so we can try to install this new welder. Not welder, alternator. All right, we're back here in the other shop. Got the hood off, got a few more tools at our disposal. So first things first, I'm going to take this old alternator off and see if the new one will bolt up to that bracket. If not, probably have to pull this old bracket, which I think is the original generator bracket, off, and then probably just make something that the new alternator will hook to. All right, got the old alternator off. I was tracing the wiring back, and the reason that it wasn't charging is because if you follow this wiring all the way up through here, they've actually got it wired to this toggle switch. So if you flip the switch, it does charge, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to change it if I can, because I'd like to be able to shut the hood all the way. And I would also like the alternator to work off of the ignition switch, not off of a secondary switch, because that's just something that I'll forget and it'll run the battery dead while the tractor's not running. So maybe I'll scrape some of this grease off of here, maybe not, and then we'll see what the new alternator looks like up in there. All right, we got the old alternator bracket off. I got the sitting on the bench, but I did notice something. I thought the radiator was leaking, but it turns out that's grease running out of the steering box down all over the floor. So it's a good thing I put regular grease in there, since all the gear lube or gear oil was running out. But over here we've got this new bracket over here. It's already got one hole in it, so I'm going to bolt this to this and then use that to drill out this other hole, so my bolt spacing should be right. And then instead of trying to bend it, I'm just going to weld 2 tabs on over here that will mount the new alternator to it. It'd be easier than bending it, because every time I bend it, it ends up crooked. Got the new bracket bolted on. Just have to make a couple tabs that will hold the alternator right about there. So they need to be about, I don't know, 2 inches long, the hole in the end, and we'll get those welded on, take it off, finish it up, probably paint it, and then we'll just have to build a little adjuster for the top that'll screw into the back of the thermostat housing. Okay, I got my bracket tacked up here. It's got 2 little tabs with a bolt going through it. It lines up pretty good, hard to see, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull the alternator back off, take it back to the bench, weld it out fully, get the bottom bracket finalized, get it right where I want it, and then we'll start working on the tensioner bracket that'll go from here to there. So it'll have to have a little bit of a jog to the forward, because it's a little bit out of line. All right, got the alternator mounted. Should clear the hood, hopefully. Got my upper bracket made. I didn't record it because my battery kept dying on the GoPro. Something about being too cold. But yeah, I just welded a slotted piece to a not slotted piece instead of trying to make a curved one, because that seemed real tricky and I don't want to mess with that. So yeah, should work just fine. Belt's got plenty of tension. My main goal was to not have to take the belt off, because I don't know how. So yeah, there's the alternator mounted. Looks awful shiny on there. Now I got to figure out the wiring, because I'm not sure why they have this wired through. They have these wires going to a switch. This wire goes somewhere else, but it was charging if you didn't know the switch to flip. So now we're going to work on wiring this up, maybe get rid of some of this old crusty wiring, and hopefully have a battery that charges when the tractor's running. Okay, we're out here. It's the next day. I did some more looking at the wiring and stuff, and I decided I am going to go ahead and do all new wiring everywhere because it's such a mess. This here don't look too bad, but I already cut out the old alternator plug. We've got 2 extra toggle switches here. This is the one that used to run the alternator. I'm still going through and trimming this out. There was this thing wired in. Not sure what it did, if anything. It had 12 volts on both sides. So it's not, I thought it might be some sort of resistor, but if it was, it's not resisting anymore. There was also something down here that looked like it used to be like a rotating switch. I went ahead and had to cut it out because it was all rusted in place, and it wasn't doing anything either. It had 3 wires and they all had 12 volts. But every time I cut something, I just start the tractor and it seems to still work. So I'm gonna go through, get this old harness out of here. We'll run a new wire to the new alternator, new wire to the coil, and try to tidy up all these extra switches. Probably won't do anything with the original 4-way switch here. It doesn't seem to do anything. Plus I don't have a generator. I'll have headlights, but they'll just be wired to a different switch, unless I can find one that'll fit in here so it still looks a little bit original. And then we'll probably also get rid of the amp gauge and put a voltmeter in there. So yeah, we'll update you when I get more stuff cut off of here. Okay, so since the last time, we got a new coil wire here running all the way back and up to our ignition switch. We have a wire coming off the ignition switch that's getting power from this, which is the battery cable hooked to the starter switch. Also, I've got a new alternator wire hooked up, and that's running down and hooked to the battery cable on the starter. Not tight yet because I'm going to add more stuff to that probably. So now all I got to do is I got to hook up the 2 wires from here. I have to look up a diagram because I've forgotten, but I got to hook these up, and then we should have a charging system and an ignition system, and that's everything we need until I decide to put lights on it. Because all right, got this wire, which is the exciter wire, I guess, for the starter or for the alternator. It's hooked up to the ignition switch. I'm sure you guys all know because you're tractor people and I'm not, but I did move this long one away from the here because this is only hot when you're pushing the button. I noticed that after it didn't work the first time, but I got it lengthened and put up over on the battery post. I was trying to figure out where this wire goes. According to my wiring diagram, it goes to, this is for your warning light, but it seems to work just fine without it. Charges at idle, it charges at about 13.5, and up at higher RPM, it was at 14.6 or so, which is about what it should be. And it shuts off when you turn the switch off. It has 0.05 amp draw, but I don't know that hooking the other wire up is going to do anything, because even with this unhooked it has the same amount. So that'll probably be good enough, because I plan on disconnecting the battery when this thing's going to sit for a long time anyways. So now all I got to do is tidy up these wires, and she'll be ready to put the hood back on. I got the cover here to the ammeter box with the light switch that's no longer hooked to anything, but I'll leave it there because I like the way it looks, and I'll probably end up trying to figure out how to make a switch in there work for the lights. The ammeter, I'm not going to hook back up, but I did find a really cool voltage gauge that works. It's off an old boat, so it should be waterproof, so it won't mind sitting outside. I tested it, it worked. It even has a light that comes on, so all I got to do is hook this up to the ignition switch and ground it, and we should have an indication if our alternator is working, if it fits in the box. That'll be the next test. All right, got the volt gauge in. Doesn't look factory, but when you turn the key on, the light comes on, tells you how much juice you've got. right, so there it is. All the mess is cleaned up. I've still got a couple wires hanging out. These are like wires for lights, which I'm going to put new lights on it, so I'll leave those on so I can pull new wires through there. I'm going to come through and loom all this up. Not that you really notice it, that's why I went with all red, because once you paint it, all the wiring's red anyways. So put a clamp on the exhaust so it's not rattling around anymore. I'm going to come over here and put a little loom and tie these wires up a little bit nicer, but that's going to do it for this video. Just a little bit more tractor work. Next video, probably be taking this thing up and pressure washing it, trying to get a few years of gunk off the side. I scraped the cylinder or the valve cover off just because I want to see what it looked like. Dirty. So we're going to go ahead and pressure wash it in the next video, but that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more tractor content, and let us know what you think.